Rebecca, and I manage the Mountains to Sound Greenway Trust's education program. Normally, our educators are out in the field and in classrooms teaching kids about forest ecosystems, salmon, land and water issues, and how to be good stewards of the environment. While schools are on pause, we want to offer something engaging in this virtual space, so we'll be posting a series of videos all about forest ecosystems and how we can be good stewards of them to help them survive and thrive. We'll teach you about all the living and the non-living parts of these systems and how they interact. And in each video, we'll invite you to do an activity at home and tell us about it. We think it's really important for us all to learn about forests because there's a lot of them here in the Greenway and we interact with them a lot. And whenever we interact with forests, we affect them in some way, just like they affect us. And the better we understand these forests, the more we'll be able to make sure that our interactions are positive. We're going to spend some time in each video talking about different ways that we can be good stewards of forests. Do you know what a steward is? Stewards are like caretakers. Here at the Greenway Trust, we act as stewards when we plant native trees and shrubs, remove invasive plant species, and help build and maintain recreation trails. So we're excited to help teach you different ways that you can be stewards of forests too. Now, I've used this word ecosystem a few times so far in the video. Do you know what that means? Do you know what an ecosystem is? An ecosystem is a collection of living and non-living parts that are linked by their interactions with one another. And notice that word system in there. A system is a collection of parts that work together in a big connected network. Ecosystems are just systems in nature. An ecosystem can be as large as the whole planet or as small as a petri dish, or even smaller. One ecosystem is made up of smaller ecosystems, and it's also part of a larger system of ecosystems. For example, if you think of a park near where you live, that's an ecosystem, and within it there are smaller systems, and that park itself is part of a larger system of parks in your city, or the Pacific Northwest ecosystem, or the whole global ecosystem. So what do you think of when you think of a forest ecosystem? Maybe you think of trees or flowers or bears or mosquitoes or a waterfall, but these things don't exist in a vacuum. Just as this image here isn't a forest, it's just a piece of a forest. You have to have all of those parts, all the living and the non-living things working together to make a forest ecosystem. When we think about the forest, we break up the different parts of it into different categories to help us understand how they work, their role in the ecosystem. The simplest categories are whether something is alive or not alive. And our way for remembering this at the Greenway Education Program is using our ABCs. A stands for abiotic, which means not living. What would you put in the abiotic category? This one can be tricky to think about because it includes things that maybe we can't see, and it also doesn't include things that were alive at one point. The abiotic parts of an ecosystem are light, air, water, and soil. Though soil's kind of a funky one, so we'll talk about it later. The B in our ABC stands for biotic, which means living. What would you put into the biotic category? Plants, animals, fungi, bacteria, these are all living parts of the ecosystem. We can also call these biotic parts organisms. Organisms are any living thing. That includes trees, wildflowers, mushrooms, mold, bears, fish, bugs, you and me. These are all different kinds of organisms. If you're having trouble remembering which word means living and which word means non-living, think about this. Bio means life. So biology is the study of life. And so biotic refers to things that are living right now or that were living at some point. For example, a tree that dies and falls over is still biotic even though it's now dead. And the prefix a means not, so abiotic means not living. And in this case, that means things that were never alive, like light, air, water, and soil. So we've got the A and the B of our ABCs. The C stands for connections. While ecosystems are made up of living, biotic, and non-living abiotic parts, those parts are all interact through their connections, which makes them the ecosystem. And that brings us to our activity. Think of a forest that you've been to or that you've seen in a book or on TV, and try to remember all of the abiotic and biotic parts, and then draw that forest ecosystem. Once you have your drawing, think about the connections that exist between the different parts of that ecosystem. Add connections to your drawing by making arrows from one part of the ecosystem to another. For example, you might draw an arrow from the air to a squirrel because the squirrel breathes air in and out, or from a caterpillar to a bird because the caterpillar is eaten by the bird. Add as many connections as you can. If adding arrows to your drawing makes it messy and harder to understand, try making a word map like this. Have your drawing in front of you and next to that a blank piece of paper, and then just like this, write the name of the organisms and the non-living parts in your drawing on your blank paper in roughly the same spot where you see them in your drawing. This simplifies the model a little bit and makes it easier to have more arrows in your map, in your model. Now, if you'd like, I invite you to share what you create with us by emailing education@mtsgreenway.org, and we might share it on our social media. Now stay tuned for the next video when we learn about the abiotic parts of a forest ecosystem. See you next time.